Welcome into the Ravens Rundown, everybody. I am your host, Joey Petersen. On today's show, we got a pretty big topic to discuss because, unfortunately, for some Ravens fans, there's some pretty bad news. I'll break down what that has to do with Jaire Alexander and what that has to do with the Baltimore Ravens and where they go moving forward from there. All of this intel is from an ESPN article. Jeremy Fowler dropped some intel on all 32 NFL teams. That came out yesterday, and then Peter Schrager of ESPN as well was on the Pat McAfee show, said some things just a couple hours ago that pertain to today's subject. We'll get into all of that in just a little bit. Before that, though, make sure you guys subscribe because we are in a race to 35,000 subscribers, and we're closest to Mavericks today. I know a lot of you guys probably don't have any malice towards the Dallas Mavericks. They actually are my favorite basketball team. But they are the next closest channel in the Chat Sports League, I guess you could say. The Chat Sports Company. And I want to pass them. I've got to pass them. And I need your guys' help to do it. Okay, Mavs fans are already down bad because Luka Doncic is no longer on that basketball team. I need you guys to make them feel worse when we pass them on the race to 35,000 subscribers. Help me out. Hit that sub button. Let's close that gap a little bit. So the bad news on today's show, while you guys clicked in, what we're talking about over the next couple of minutes is Jaire Alexander is probably staying in Green Bay. Most likely. Nothing's official yet, and there's been a lot of changes throughout the entire offseason with Jaire Alexander and his future, but the latest from Jeremy Fowler sure points to the possibility of him remaining in Green Bay. Here's what he had to say. The Packers and Alexander are working on a resolution that should materialize soon. A revised contract for Alexander, due $17.5 million in cash this year to balance his injury history with his longtime status as an elite corner, might be the most sensible play. And Jeremy Fowler's not the only one from ESPN talking about this subject because Peter Schrager was on the Pat McAfee show just this afternoon and said, I talked to Matt LaFleur during draft week, and he said they're in a good place with Jaire Alexander. This situation is a lot better place than what has been presented in the media. There is a place for Jaire Alexander in Green Bay. And this honestly surprises me just a little bit. Not because I don't think that Green Bay would be better with Jaire Alexander. Not because of that, but just because everything that we've seen and heard and have been pointed to over the last couple of months has pointed to Jaire Alexander either being traded or being released eventually. I would have bet a lot of money a couple months ago that that's where they went, okay? And I would have loved the addition of Jaire if he was cut. That's the bad news in all of this. Is I think he would have fit perfectly with the secondary and would just added another really solid wrinkle to what already is a really good defensive background. But I am happy, I will say, that Baltimore didn't end up trading for him, okay? Obviously, they weren't going to give Green Bay what they felt that they deserved for him. That's why he never was traded. And I'm really happy to look back over the last couple of months and say it's probably a good thing they didn't make the move. Now, I will say, though, it's not over. Because if you look at this timeline, over the last 3 months, 4 months, it's been up and down and up and down. It all started in January when Jaire Alexander said a locker room clean out. I don't even know if I'm going to be here next year. Then Ian Rappaport and ESPN came out with reports within about a month of each other, both saying that Green Bay has had trade conversations and Green Bay is still trying to trade him. Then 2 weeks after that, their general manager, Brian Gutekunst, said it could be a possibility, absolutely, when asked about Jaire Alexander staying on the team. And then about 3 weeks ago, another report came out, said Green Bay has received interest, and they remain committed to making a deal and trading Jaire Alexander. So if we've learned anything, is to not feel comfortable where anything is, that it all can change on a dime. But I need you guys to make the call for me, okay? Get in the comment section down below and let me know, what will the Packers do with Jaire? Will they keep him or will they cut him? If you think they're going to keep him, give me a K in the comment section. And if you think they're going to cut him, go ahead and type those C's. So I originally thought that they'd wind up cutting him because Rob Demovsky of ESPN came out with a pretty interesting thing about Jaire Alexander. But most of all, is like the money is wild. What they would save if they cut him. They designated him as a pre-June 1st cut. They would have saved $6.84 million. If it would have been post 6-1 cut, which it would have been, that would have jumped up to $17.09 million in cap savings. And then in 2026, that goes to 18. So if you cut him, they would have saved $35 million over the next 2 seasons. And then another reason I thought they were going to cut him is because I didn't think he was ever going to take a pay cut. Because Rob Domofsky, like I said earlier, of ESPN, basically told us that. Here's what he had to say. One source said the team has not approached Alexander about taking a pay cut, and that even if it did, he would not be willing to do so. Without a trading partner, the Packers would likely release him. Right? That's an older report, but at the time, everybody was like, oh my gosh, okay, he's not going to take a pay cut. They're either going to trade him or release him. Nobody thought at the time that a rework contract could be on the horizon. But then I think Jaire got smart and realized that he takes a bigger pay cut if he gets released, right? If he takes a $4 million pay cut, sure, he loses a little bit of money, but that is peanuts compared to what he might lose if he gets cut and then nobody really wants to sign him because of the injury history. And if they do want to sign him, it's for like half of what he's already making, which is a lot of money. And that's why they haven't been able to trade him, right? Base salary is $16.15 million this year, cap hit of $24.64 million. He's got a base salary the next season of $18.15 million and a cap hit of $27.02. To put it simply, he's expensive, okay? But also, subsequently, off of what Jaire Alexander realized, I think Green Bay also realized, you know what? Without Jaire in this room, our cornerbacks, they kind of suck. Like, they're not good, really, whatsoever. Like, you take Jaire out of that room, they struggle pretty heavily. I mean, just look at him. Keyshawn Nixon, he's fine, but does anybody think he can be a cornerback one? Nate Hobbs, he's really good in the nickel, but if Jaire Alexander's gone, Nate Hobbs has to go to the outside, and I wouldn't have any faith in him there. And so I think both parties have just realized it's probably better for each of us, the Packers, to keep Jaire for their team, and Jaire financially to not get released. And they're just kind of like toxic exes going back to each other. So show me down below, do you want Jaire on the Ravens? This might be the last time, the last push. I know he watches these videos sometimes. I don't know that. And if he does, and he sees a lot of likes on today's video, he might say, you know what? I want to go to the Ravens. Release me anyway. They're going to pick me up. So if you want him on the Ravens, go ahead and like today's video. Coming up, what the lack of addition of Jaire Alexander will mean for the Baltimore Ravens. What will they do going forward to pivot? I guess not pivot, but what does it look like for them in the future? For that, though, we got the future already in Baltimore, and his name is Malachi Starks. If you want his jersey, chatsports.com/Starks is where you need to go. Shout out to our friends over at Fanatics for sponsoring today's video. You can get the clean jersey. You can get it in black, purple, white. It won't have the 1 on there. It'll have his 24, but if you want it in your closet, you got to go to chatsports.com/Starks. Supports our friends at Fanatics. Supports us right here at the channel. Of course, that link is in the comments and description of today's video. So I will say the silver lining with this is that Baltimore doesn't need cornerback help like they did before. When the Jaire Alexander trade rumors started, like back in February, in January, it was like, holy crap, we need help in this cornerback room. But then you addressed a lot in the draft, and you drafted a guy like Malachi Starks. And what that did for your cornerback room is it shifted Kyle Hamilton down to the nickel. Now, we talked about this earlier today. No, I don't expect him to play in the nickel consistently. But with Malachi Starks in that safety room, that allows him to be a little bit more flexible. Because you got a guy like Ardarius Washington that could come in and be a really solid starter, because we saw it last year, right? The defensive back room has changed. And so they not necessarily, like, they don't need Jaire Alexander, which, if you look back to January, I would have said this team needed him. I mean, I'll be honest. I take Jaire. No questions asked about it. But after the addition of Malachi into this defensive back room, it doesn't quite scare me like it did. A couple months ago, I was looking who was in that room, in the cornerback room, in the safety room, just the lack of depth there on both sides, and I was saying, yeesh, this thing needs to get figured out. And now I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. But again, if we've learned anything over the past couple of months is that things can change on a dime. Just run back through this, guys. 3-17, Green Bay's still trying to trade him. 2 weeks later, it could be a possibility he remains on the roster. 2 weeks after that, Green Bay has received interest and they remain committed to making a deal and trading Jaire Alexander. So could Lamar Jackson be reunited with his old college teammate? Sure, I guess it's a possibility. But if I were you guys, no matter how happy these faces look right there, I wouldn't bet on it. And I would expect anytime over the next couple of weeks, over the next couple of days, honestly, for Green Bay to announce, you know what? Restructuring the deal, he's staying in green and gold. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button before you get on out of here. If you love the Ravens, you found the perfect place to be. We cover the Ravens daily, on the weekly, the monthly. We'll be here all throughout the summer when a lot of people, take their time off. We don't do that here. This is every day. This is my job. I get paid to cover this team to the best of my ability. So make sure you guys hit us up, join us right now, and subscribe.